How we doing, folks? Your host Moose on the Pitt Panthers Football Network, bringing you your Around the NCAA update for Week 11 as the Panthers are on the backs of a big 41-31 victory against Georgia Tech, coming from behind, pitching a shutout in the second half, and finally stopping that Georgia Tech option attack and coming away with a crucial victory at home, keeping those beautiful throwback uniforms undefeated and keeping the Panthers actually undefeated at home this year. It's an absolute fortress playing at Heinz Field, and they come away with a win. Because of that, they're able to make some recruiting news. Unfortunately, we're going to start off with a couple of recruits that the Panthers actually did not pick up. This one was a huge target, the top halfback in the country, the one 5-star player that the Panthers were tracking and trying to bring in, Ken Huffman. He's a speedster, there's no doubt about that. Not great carrying the ball, but his speed, acceleration, agility are just unreal and would have been a fantastic player to bring in. Unfortunately, he went to Virginia, wants to go and help improve that program. They promised him playing time right away, which the Panthers just didn't have the ability to do, and so he went there. The other guys, Billy Ross, a 4-star strong safety out of Scarsdale, New York, looked to be a very all-around good player, good hit power, okay in coverage, decent speed, looked to just be a very good field general type of player. And unfortunately, the Panthers lost out to their hated rivals, Penn State University, were able to snap him up. So the Panthers don't get two of their big targets. That was a 4-star they lost there, but they do bring in free safety, 3-star from Solon, Ohio, Steve Royal. Looks to be very good in coverage, especially in the zone, as well as press. Good solid tackler, very good speed, so he should be able to cover the field really well. The Panthers held off some lower profile teams. The likes of Kent State was climbing his interest chart, Kentucky, Georgia State, South Carolina, but he did commit to the Pitt Panthers, wanted to stay fairly close to home and have a chance to make an impact. So Steve Royal will be joining the Pittsburgh Panthers next season. The second commit that we got off the back of this Georgia Tech victory was Adam Rivas, middle linebacker from Palm Harbor, Florida. Florida's always been a huge pipeline for the Panthers, and they brought a decent middle linebacker in. Not the fastest, okay in coverage, decent tackler. He's definitely not going to slot into a starting role. He's more of a depth type player for sure, but with the Panthers graduating Galambus, they definitely wanted to bring in a middle linebacker. The Panthers did fight off some good competition, though. Very good teams, LSU, West Virginia, big rival there, Nebraska and Washington, but Rivas chose to come to the University of Pittsburgh. And Pat Narduzzi, with those 2 victories on the recruiting trail, he releases the Pat signal. Pitt is it. Hashtag hail to Pitt. Hopefully there will be a few more big signings to come before the end of the recruiting season. But we get back into the regular season here in the NCAA ACC schedule. Of course, your Panthers coming off a 41-31 win over Georgia Tech. Additionally, huge game. Number 8 Clemson against number 17 Louisville, basically for the title on the other side of the ACC, the Atlantic Division. Clemson 26-24. Boston College beat Duke. Florida State obliterated Wake Forest 48-14. North Carolina 24 over Virginia 17. And Miami, number 4 in the country, remains unbeaten with a tight victory over Virginia Tech 24-17. Big win for the Hurricanes to stay unbeaten. In Clemson, we see the 26-24 performance. Lamar Jackson put up 3 touchdowns, but the Artavis Scott kick return as well as a bunch of field goals clinched things for the Clemson Tigers. In the Big 12, Oklahoma stays unbeaten 9-0 after a 30-14 victory against Baylor, so a big victory for the Sooners, holding them off. Georgia, Texas A&M, TCU just held off Iowa State, who was looking for an upset bid. Michigan beat Rutgers. Ohio State over Michigan State in a very tight contest, but Ohio State stays unbeaten. Penn State 38-17 over Minnesota. Big victory there. Wisconsin obliterates BYU. Navy still unbeaten, 28-17 over Memphis. Washington continues just obliterating everyone they play, 45-3. Houston 35-7 over UCF as they remain unbeaten. In the big game of the week, Alabama 19-14. Bo Scarborough with a touchdown run in the third quarter was the deciding factor, beating LSU's 2-headed rushing monster 19-14. Alabama stays unbeaten. Texas falls to West Virginia. Big upset there in Morgantown, 33-31. Big win from the Mountaineers to pick up a big victory to hopefully get them a better bowl opportunity. And Arizona State comes away with the upset of number 15 Utah. Late touchdown really sealed the victory. UCLA wins 21-7 over Arizona. That's going to set up a few big matchups coming up that we'll see. Jake Schlager, interception for Colorado State, wins NCAA Defensive Player of the Week. Donnell Pumphrey, 5 touchdowns, 227-yard performance. Great performance for the San Diego State senior to come away with the NCAA Player of the Week on offense here in Week 11. Big win over San Jose State in that contest. And in the ACC, Jonathan Hilliman, running back from Boston College, 229-yard, 4-touchdown performance in the win over Duke, whereas MJ Stewart for North Carolina in their win over Virginia had 2 picks to come away with ACC Player of the Week honors here in Week 11. A couple of big performances, from those gentlemen. With those big performances in mind, we take a look at our Heisman recap. JT Barrett still top of the charts. Greg Ward Jr. making his move, though, for undefeated Houston after a nice 2-touchdown performance. DeAndre Francois for Florida State in that big Wake Forest victory, 3 touchdowns for him. Tago Smith from undefeated Navy's now into the conversation after a 4-touchdown, 303 combined yard performance, including 161 by himself on the ground. Gets himself into the Heisman conversation if Navy could possibly stand defeated. And, of course, Deshaun Watson still in it, but he is injured, so that's probably not going to help his Heisman candidacy. So enough about individual achievements. We are going to discuss how things shake out across the NCAA in the top 25. And if we take a look, Alabama, unanimous atop the coaches poll. I should say not unanimous, but number 1 yet again across the coaches and media poll, with Oklahoma in the 2nd spot. Washington 3rd. The top 7 stays the way it is, as it's all those undefeated squads, but Navy jumps up to 8th, leapfrogging Clemson as they remain undefeated. Clemson and Pitt, 2 ACC squads at 9 and 10, so your Pitt Panthers up to 10th, back to that 10th spot that they had a week ago here in the nation. UCLA, Michigan, LSU, TCU, and Baylor rounding out that top 15. Baylor and LSU, 2 teams to lose last week. Utah drops down to 20th with their loss. Penn State's up to 19th, so a little PA news for you guys there. Louisville drops back to 22nd with their loss to Clemson. So those are, and Texas, of course, out of the ranking. So those are your coaches poll. Let's take a look at what really matters for the national championship hopes. Alabama and Oklahoma still your 1 and 2. Washington, Miami lurking in the wings, but Miami's going to have to play Pitt as well as potentially Clemson in the ACC championship. Ohio State and Wisconsin might have to play in the Big Ten championship. Houston and Navy are going to have to play coming up very soon. So a lot of chances for teams to falter here in the final weeks of the season. So we're going to see who has the mettle to make it to the NCAA championship game. Miami and Pitt, that is your 1-2 matchup here. Those teams will play not this coming week, but in 2 weeks, I should say. Those 2 teams are going to match up. So that's going to be huge to see who can go ahead and come out of the Coastal to take on Clemson, who's already clinched the ACC Atlantic title. So the Tigers looking for redemption potentially if they can face Pitt in that championship game. That would be an absolute massive matchup. Speaking of massive matchups, here in Week 12, number 3 Washington goes to Los Angeles to take on number 11 UCLA. Kirk Herbstreit has the Bruins knocking off the undefeated Washington Huskies, who have the best defense in the country. They've been obliterating teams. 3rd best scoring offense against the 2nd best scoring offense. 1st best defense against the 11th best defense. It's going to be a game for the ages, I could imagine, but Herbstreit has the Bruins. Who do you guys have in that matchup? Additionally, 2 undefeated teams doing battle. This is an incredible week of games. Houston 9-0 goes to Annapolis to take on Navy 8-0, and that number 1 rushing offense, as well as fantastic turnover differential for Navy, the midshipmen as well, +9. But Herbstreit sees the firepower of Houston just being too much for an average Navy defense to overcome, and he has Houston going to 10-0 after this one. And of course, big matchup for your Pitt Panthers, senior week, or should I say senior day, as the North Carolina Tar Heels come up to Pittsburgh to Heinz Field to take on the Panthers, who are surely going to be motivated by the fact that it is senior day and they want to send their senior class out with one more home win and chalk up a undefeated home schedule if they can. Herbstreit sees them doing that. Panthers' 4th best scoring offense in the country. That's where I think they're going to have the advantage over North Carolina. 92nd scoring offense in the country. You wonder how. It's because North Carolina has a big injury loss that's really affecting an offense that has so many playmakers on it. Not a great defense for North Carolina either, and you can see if you look at their schedule, they've won the games they're supposed to win. Northern Illinois, Colorado State, ECU, but in the ACC they've struggled. Lost to Virginia Tech, Miami, NC State they weren't able to beat. They did come away with a win against Virginia, but Virginia's 2-8, so nothing too impressive for North Carolina this season. And the reason being, They got a great running back. Elijah Hood, fantastic player, 108 yards a game. Bug Howard, Ryan Switzer, guys that kill Pitt every year. But you'll notice their quarterback is Elliott. And he's 6 touchdowns, 7 picks, under 50% completion percentage because Mitch Trubisky, their fantastic quarterback who might go to the draft this year, only played in 3 games. He got hurt in his 3rd game of the season, broke his leg, and he's been out for the entire season. And that's really just killed all hopes North Carolina had of making a run at an ACC Coastal Division title. You can see they have so many weapons on offense. A good offensive line. Elijah Hood, Mac Hollins, Ryan Switzer's a fantastic slot receiver. They have a couple of really good linemen in Peterson, Heck, Crowley. So many good players. If they had Trubisky in the lineup, they would be a huge, huge threat to the Panthers, but they are not going to be able to start him, of course, with that broken leg. They'll have Elliott in there instead, and he does not intimidate anyone on the Panthers. There's no doubt about that. So with the result of that injury, we predict the Panthers on senior day, motivated as all heck, to come away with a 35-20 victory. That North Carolina offense, they have so many playmakers against a fairly subpar Pitt defense that hasn't been great against the pass this year. North Carolina's going to put up a few points. But the Panthers defense has been a bend-don't-break type all season. We think they'll do just enough, and that offense has been unbelievable, and we think they're going to continue the steamroller train that they've been on with a 35-20 victory. So let me know who's going to win the UCLA-Washington matchup, who's going to win that Houston-Navy battle, who's going to win in the Pitt-North Carolina matchup. Let us know what you think's going to happen, what you think of the recruits we're bringing in, those couple battles we lost. Always great to hear your feedback on all these episodes. We'll talk to you soon. As always, hail to Pitt. Take care. Bye-bye.